Hello, and welcome to our second lecture for EDUC 90, the teacher and the school curriculum. At the end of this discussion video, you are expected to have 90% proficiency in discussing the different types of curricula that exists in schools, as well as in examining the types of curricula in your own learning experiences. After understanding the traditional and progressive perspectives of the curriculum, you now understand that before, the curriculum was only seen as a tradition of organized knowledge taught in schools. However, the concept of a curriculum has broadened to include several modes of thoughts and experiences. Before moving forward to identifying the different types of curricula in schools, I want you to develop your own ideas about the possible types of curricula. Pause this video and fill out the graphic organizer presented here. After filling out the graphic organizer, it is now time to check whether you have a schema about the different types of curricula in schools. So let us proceed. In the 1990s and in the early 2000s, Alan Gladhorn, including his co-researchers, identified different types of curricula. It was once 7, it became 8, and somehow turned 9 as well. However, in the most recent book released by the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development, or ASCD, there were technically 7 that they identified, which are the recommended, the written, the taught, the supported, the assessed or tested, the learned, and the hidden. Giving a label to a group that is composed of these 4 curricula with asterisks on the graphic organizer as the intentional curriculum. Following those 7 types of curricula, let us start with the recommended. The recommended curriculum is the ideal curriculum. It is what curriculum scholars, researchers, and committees think that the curriculum should be. The skills and concepts that should be emphasized according to the perceptions and value systems of the sources. Recommended curricula are commonly formulated at a rather high level of generality. They are most often presented as policy recommendations, lists of goals, suggested graduation requirements, and general recommendations about the content and sequence of a field of study. Recommendations come in the form of memoranda, standards, and guidelines that came from authorized government agencies as well as professional organizations or international bodies like UNESCO. We could say that an example of a recommended curriculum is the international standards that the Philippines adopted in order to implement the K-12 curriculum in the Philippines, thus coming up with the Republic Act 10533 or the Implementing Rules and Regulations of the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. Even the inclusion of gender and development in our classes is from a recommendation by the UNESCO, thus coming up with CHED and DepEd memos for including gender and development in all of our classes. Take note, however, that even if professional organizations and international bodies could recommend a curriculum, it is only the governing authorities, DepEd, CHED, and TESDA, which could approve and mandate the use of any curriculum in the Philippines. The Department of Education, or DepEd, oversees education from kindergarten, grade 1 through grade 6, to elementary or primary education, grade 7 through grade 10, the junior high school of secondary education, and grade 11 through grade 12, which is the senior high school of secondary education. Each of these levels have their respective recommended curriculum from the Department of Education. The Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, oversees education for higher levels such as baccalaureate or bachelor's degree and graduate degrees such as master's and doctorate degrees. Different programs and degrees have their own recommended curriculum from the Commission on Higher Education. And lastly, the Technical Education Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, oversees education for technical vocational education and training. A person who wants to learn textbook skills can enroll in the programs offered by TESDA as long as they fit the prerequisite requirements. TESDA works hand in hand with DepEd for the senior high school's TechVoc track and with CHED for any TechVoc related course. Different programs and certifications have their own recommended curriculum by the Technical Education Skills Development Authority or TESDA. The next one is the written curriculum, which focuses on specifying the general ideals present in the recommended curricula, as well as contextualizing it as the curriculum writers see fit, thus making it more comprehensive as compared to the very general recommended curriculum. The written curriculum is usually made in order to assure that the educational goals of a system are being accomplished, which is why it is labeled as a curriculum of control. It aims to standardize practices, to mediate between the recommended curriculum and what actually happens in the classroom, and to control what is taught. Using the sample recommended curriculum, we could say that the parallel written curriculum of the recommended Republic Act 10533 are the course guides included in the law, which are mass-produced and distributed by DepEd. As per the inclusion of gender and development in our classes, the course syllabus which shows gender and development is the parallel written curriculum. Next, the taught curriculum, which could be called as the delivered curriculum since it is the one that teachers actually deliver in the classroom and that could be seen in action by an observer. The research on the alignment between the taught and the written curriculum should still be meta-analyzed. Is the written curriculum just for standardization and control, or does it contribute a significant degree of effectiveness and efficacy to the teacher's work? Researchers have pointed out that there is enormous variation in the nature of what is actually taught, despite the superficial appearance of uniformity. Bergman in 2010 suggested that a good teacher is like a good writer, probably because you have a certain main idea that you want to explore, but you have to think of ways on how to approach it with which the readers or learners will get hooked. Thus, the teachers decide about the best way to facilitate learning, combining both the teaching strategies that they could offer and the learning styles or information of the students. What follows next is the supported curriculum, which is reflected in and shaped by the resources allocated to support and deliver the curriculum. Supported curriculum are the complementary instructional or learning materials available, such as textbooks, modules, softwares, and multimedia resources. It also includes other time resources like how much time do the authorities allow for the teaching of one subject at a specific level of schooling, and personal allocation or human resources like how many teachers are needed if the maximum number of students per class will be limited to 30. There is a lot of issues to be unpacked regarding the supported curriculum because students and other stakeholders seem to not know that teachers and even principals are usually just trying to use the resources given to them by the government and the authorizing agency. The taught and supported curriculum has to be evaluated to find out if the teacher has succeeded or not in facilitating learning. During the process of learning and at the end of it, an assessment is made. The assessed curriculum is the set of learnings that is assessed in teacher-made classroom tests, in district-developed curriculum reference tests, and in standardized tests. It can either be assessment for learning, assessment of learning, or assessment as learning. If the process is to find out the progress of learning, then the assessed curriculum is for learning. If it is to find out how much has been learned or mastered, then it is assessment of learning. If it is used as a learning experience in itself or discussed as a subject, then it is assessment as learning. One thing that is important for further study in the assessed curriculum are standardized tests which seem to only measure lower order thinking skills, which is used to synonymously mean as mastery of the content. Higher order thinking skills are being sacrificed. Other researchers also found out that there is a significant difference between standardized tests and what some instructors or teachers are teaching. The consequences of inadequate alignment and poor testing are serious. One thing that we would be discussing in this subject is how to ensure that you make a test that is aligned with what you are teaching as well as what has been recommended. Berliner in 1984 stated that there is a lower achievement in schools that do not have proper alignment of what is being taught and what is being tested. The sixth one is the learned curriculum, which is usually identified as a result of the assessed or tested curriculum. It is dubbed as the bottom line curriculum since it is the curriculum that students actually learn. Clearly, this is the most important of all the types of curricula. The term learned curriculum is used here to denote all the changes in values, perceptions, and behavior that occur as a result of school experiences. As such, it includes what the students understand, learn, and retain from both the intentional curriculum and the hidden curriculum. How do we know if the student has learned? We always believe that if a student changed behavior, they have learned. For example, from a non-reader to a reader, from not knowing to knowing, or from being disobedient to being obedient. The positive outcome of teaching is an indicator of learning. What then do students learn and retain from the intentional curriculum? Obviously, the answer varies with the student, the teacher, and the curriculum. Students seem to be focused only on things which they think will be on the test, and that is a bit problematic. The last of the seven is the most interesting at first glance because of its name, the hidden curriculum, which is also known as the unintended or the unintentional curriculum. The concept of hidden curriculum expresses the idea that schools do more than simply transmitting knowledge. It is best defined as those aspects of schooling, other than the intentional curriculum, that seem to produce changes in students' values, perceptions, and behaviors. It could include learnings gained from the physical environment, as well as the policies and the procedures of the school. As an example, in the setup of our curriculum at the moment, where subjects like music, arts, and physical education are not given the same amount of time as compared to other subjects like English, science, or mathematics, the learners could form the idea that these are not at par with all the other subjects and pursuing a career in those fields is unimportant, sometimes even considered as just a mere hobby. The hidden curriculum might be seen as those aspects of the learned curriculum that lie outside the boundaries of the school's intentional efforts. In order to look at the relationship of the seven types of curricula, I included here a figure made by Baron. It shows the grouped intentional curricula and how each one affects the other. In our discussion, I introduced the taught curriculum first since it is easier to understand for learners without fundamental knowledge of the curriculum. Then, I just defined the supported curriculum after. However, in the diagram, the appropriate place of the supported and the taught curriculum is shown. This is because, as much as teachers think that they have independence in their teaching, they are limited by the supported curriculum. Not unless the teachers provide for more resources from their own personal resources. Most teachers have this idea about academic freedom, which is a misconception. Academic freedom is not about being able to do what you want to do freely. Academic freedom means the freedom to teach, study, and pursue knowledge and research without unreasonable interference or restriction. Teachers should still follow the rules and regulations of the institution that they are working on, as well as the nation's standards of quality education. As the most important type of curriculum and the bottom line curriculum, it is obvious that all the other types of curriculum affects the learned curriculum. One type of curriculum that was once included by Glatthorn in his studies in 2001 is the excluded or null curriculum, which I think is interesting to include in the discussion. The excluded curriculum is what has been left out, either intentionally or unintentionally. Eisner in 1979 terms this the null curriculum since it is not readily apparent. For example, U.S. history curricula often have omitted or covered only briefly topics such as the labor movement, the importance of religion in American life, or the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Girk, Knapp, and Citronic in 1992 point out that the excluded curriculum is powerful by virtue of its absence. In order for you to generalize and assess your learnings in this lesson, kindly answer the activity sheet that I sent to you. For a quick overview, here is the task that you will do. Lastly, here are the list of references and supplementary materials that have been used for this lesson. That would be all for this video. Thank you and have a good day.